733 million dahil kukunti lang naman po ang populasyon ng Dinagat compared sa ibang probinsya ng Region 13. Balik naman po tayo dito sa ating granular lockdown na ginagawa nationwide. Mr. President, ang ating pong NCR ay inilagay under Alert Level 3. At ngayong araw na ito po ay nakasama na rin ang probinsya ng Bulacan, Rizal at Cavite na under ng Alert Level 3. At dito po ay pinagbabawal natin ang mass gathering at ipatutupad natin ang minimum public health standard. Iraramp up po natin ang pagbabakuna. At katulad po ng napag-usapan at sinabi pong in-announce po ninyo na ang mga mass gatherings po katulad ng mga face-to-face activities involving religious activities ay pinagbabawal po muna natin katulad ng translasyon. Sa buong Pilipinas po, pakibalik muna, ay meron po tayong 8 under granular lockdown affecting 9 households and 17 individuals. Pero in-expect po natin na within the week ay dadami po itong granular lockdown areas dahil po sa tumataas nating kaso ng COVID. Next slide. Sa ating pagpapatupad naman ng community health protocols ay nakita po natin na bumaba ang mga violations ng not wearing of face mask at mass gatherings at physical distancing. So maganda pong indications ito na sumusunod ang ating mga kababayan sa minimum public health standard. Next, please. Sa ating pong tuloy-tuloy na kampanya laban sa illegal drugs, nakapagsagawa tayo sa nakaraang linggo ng 547 anti-illegal drug operations. 797 po ang ating naaresto. 52 naman ang nag-surrender at isa ang nasawi sa ating operations. At sa buo pong operasyon ng linggong ito ay nakapagkumpiska tayo ng shabu at marijuana amounting to 143,938,870 pesos worth of shabu and marijuana. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin po ang ating kampanya dito. Next slide. Ayan lamang po, mahal na Pangulo, at magandang gabi po.
I'd like to congratulate the PNP for their sustained fervor. Itong laban sa droga. I hope that in the coming years, months, na matutukan talaga. It has to be a sustained campaign with no end in sight because nakita mo naman during my watch sa stricto ko sa droga, gano'n rin. May mga tao talaga na it's money. It's always money. So, yan ang magiging problema. But I'd like to congratulate the DILG and the police for the fervor that they are nurturing in fighting the drug problem. It's not a matter of addiction. Ito talagang ang gusto kong hiritan itong mga drug lords. No quarters given, no quarters asked yan. Thank you, Secretary Anyo. Now, sino pa? Itong si FDA, kasi bago. Umuwi na?
Secretary Galvesig, Secretary Dizon, wala pa sila sa...
ito. Kailangan magbalik si kasi may tanongin tayong bago pa naman siya. Secretary Dizon, nandiyan ka sa panel, and to be followed by Secretary Galvez.
Good evening, Mr. President. Very quick lang po ito. No? This is to just sisigundahan lang po natin yung sinabi ng ating mga experts kanina. Mr. President, you're looking at data po from the United Kingdom, isa sa mga bansa kung saan talaga nag-dominate yung Omicron. And as you can clearly see po, by very wide margins, it is really the unvaccinated po, Mr. President, na talagang tinatamaan ng matindi nitong Omicron virus. Next slide, please. We can see this in cases. We can also see this in hospitalization. Tama po yung sinabi nyo kanina, Mr. President. No, kung hindi ka bakunado at lumabas ka at nahawa ka, hindi mo lang ini-endanger yung sarili mo at yung pamilya mo, pero ini-endanger mo yung buong community dahil po in all likelihood, ikaw po ay mauospital. At dahil po sa paglabas mo at hindi ka bakunado, mapupuno po ang ating mga ospital at magkakaroon na naman po tayo ng malaking problema. Nakikita, ito po ang nangyari sa United Kingdom, Mr. President. At ang huli po, kung titingnan po natin yung mga namamatay, again, next slide please, ito din po, by and large, are the unvaccinated. No? Napakataas po ng diferensya ng mga namamatay na unvaccinated versus sa vaccinated po halos wala, konting-konti lang po. So tama po talaga, Mayor, yung sinabi na talaga pong kailangan maging mas stricto tayo sa mga hindi bakunado. And ito na rin po ang ginagawa ng mga ibang bansa. Next slide, please. Kung titignan po natin ang ibang bansa, countries all over the world are restricting the exposure of the unvaccinated. Sa France po, they are cracking down on unvaccinated. Germany, they are locking down unvaccinated people. And even in South Korea po, they now are imposing new vaccine passes, no, para po i-restrict yung movement ng mga unvaccinated. Dahil po ito po talaga ang sitwasyon ngayon ng mga iba't ibang bansa, hindi lang tayo, na ang unvaccinated are really the ones that are being hit badly by the new variants, and they are the ones causing the healthcare systems to be congested, and because of that, they pose the greatest risk. And therefore, tama po ang inyong sinabi kanina, Mr. President. And we would like po to thank the Metro Manila Council, next slide please, led by Chairman Benher Abalos, dahil po ginawa na po ng Metro Manila Council ang very bold move na ito. Nag-issue po sila ng resolution kahapon na in NCR, ang mga hindi bakunado ay i-restrict na po ang movement. Mr. President, nag-usap na po kami ni Secretary Anyo, ni Secretary Duque, Secretary Galvez, Secretary Lorenzana, na we are recommending that this policy in NCR also be adopted by the entire country, even in areas po na hindi pa nagsusurge. Dahil alam naman po natin, it is really just a matter of time na itong Omicron ay kumagat na sa buong bansa. And we would like to thank po the Metro Manila mayors for making this bold move and also for all their help hindi lang sa NCR kundi sa buong Luzon, tulad ng Region 4A at Region 3, kung saan ang ating mga cities tulad ng Manila, Taguig, Quezon City, Mandaluyong at iba pong mga cities, nag-o-offer po sila ng kanilang mga isolation facilities and medicines even for residents outside of Metro Manila. Yun lang po, Mr. President, and thank you very much po sa inyong suporta, lalo na dito sa policy natin for the unvaccinated and also dito po sa pagkakansila muna ng ating mga feasts and events tulad ng translation. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Salamat, Vince. I think that si Secretary Galvez may maidagdag ka?
Yes, sir. May report po ako, sir. Pasensya na po, sir. Di ako nakadating po ngayon dahil kasi 2 beses po ako na-exposed kanginang umaga sa aking mga kasamahan sa aking opisina dahil kasi 15 po ang naging positive sa amin pong opisina ngayong araw. Mr. President, Senator Bongo, KSML DLDA, mga kababayan, magandang gabi po. As a year-end report to the people, ang presentation ko po ngayon, Mr. President, will provide a preview of what we have done at ano po yung mga gagawin natin in the midst of the rising cases with the Omicron. Masaya po kami magre-report, Mr. President, na masurpass po natin ang expected supply with 210 million doses delivered. Hindi po natin maasahan na nakadeliver po tayo ng more than 200 million. Nagsucceed din po tayo sa mga contract deliveries at ang COVAX po ay nasurpass din po ang kanyang commitment from 44 million doses ay ang na-deliver niya po ay 62.8 million doses. At gusto natin pasalamatan po ang mga donors, particularly po ang US, ang EU nations at ang ating mga friendly nations. Ang private sector din po, Mr. President, at saka ang LGU, nag-contribute din po sila ng 22 million doses procured. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga private sectors and mga LGUs. At as of this date, we were able to administer 108.8 million doses. At 57 million po dito ang first dose at more or less 50 million people with second dose. Ang lang po, we are still relatively slow sa ating mga pag-booster at at the same time, kailangan po natin hanapin at i-vaccinate ang 2.5 million na unvaccinated seniors. But we are good to report that ang vaccination po natin sa mga minors, particularly yung 12 to 17, 8 million na po ang nakakuha ng first dose at 5.7 million ang nakakuha po ng second dose. Next slide, please. Ito po ng slide po nito, ito po yung what had been transpired and where we are heading now. With our good experiences in handling Delta and different variants, by effective yung PDITR strategy po natin, we need to shift our focus now on localized response by enhancing our barangay COVID response system and also to educate our people on self-management and exercise their individual social responsibility of protecting themselves and their families and communities. Next slide, please. Ito pong slide po nito reflects the collaborated vaccination strategies na ginawa po natin noong fourth quarter, considering the challenges ng trifecta of supply, throughput, and demand. We have also now have a steady supply existing of 100 million doses in our stockpile. So meron po tayong more than 101 million doses na po na nandun po sa ating mga warehouses. Through NBOC, nag-establish na po tayo ng sustainable way on how to efficiently manage the day-to-day administration of vaccines delivered. Nagkakaroon na rin po tayo ng parallel efforts sa ating mga region at saka mga LGU to vaccinate the unvaccinated, aggressively administer boosters, and further expand our target population. And ipupursu po natin ang vaccination ng children from 5 to 11 years old when the especially forward, tinatawag nating formulated vaccine will arrive. Mag-uusap po kami ni Ambassador Babes, Mr. President, para po mapadali po ang pag-deliver ng Pfizer. Bukas po ng 9 o'clock mag-uusap po kami para po ma-deliver na po na mas maaga yung especially formulated po na minimized na microgram ng Pfizer para po sa ating 5 to 11 years old na vaccinate po. Next slide, please. At kailangan po natin mapalakas ang kapasidad ng mga LGUs para masustain at mapabilis ang ating pagbabakuna hanggang ginagawa nila ang usual official business nila without interruptions, yung mga ginagawa po nila araw-araw. At nakita po natin na dahil sa malapit na pong eleksyon, our LGUs should remain focused in making the vaccines available to different barangays and cities and maintain their mega sites, but also they will establish yung mobile teams po ng vaccination site in each barangay, katulad po ng ginawa po ng Gensan. Kailangan din ma-maintain din nila yung integrity ng accessibility ng vaccination information system para po magkaroon po tayo, madali po makakuha ng mga vaccination cards. At kung magka-travel po, madali po ang access. Next slide please po. Ang isang malaking challenge pa rin po natin ay ma-address po natin yung tinatawag nating unwillingness of others to get vaccinated and get their boosters. Kasi po yung iba, pagka nalaman nila na dalawang ano po sila, parang ayaw nila pong boosters. And the DOH and the private sector are now doing their best to increase public uptake. And we were successful in increasing the uptake during our national vaccination series with the massing up of people in the different vaccination sites. We intend to repeat the successful vaccination days. This time, it will be focused on our seniors and also focused on the different areas. Next slide, please. As a long-term strategic response, kailangan din po natin, Mr. President, na ma-maintain natin yung higher bed capacities ng ating mga hospital at saka ma-maintain yung adequate manpower. With the increase of cases of Omicron, we need to activate our manpower resources with the DOH emergency hiring and the mobilization of medical students and armed services medical auxiliaries from the Armed Forces of the Philippines, the PNP, the PCG, and the Bureau of Fire. Ito po, nagtatawagan na po kami ng Armed Forces of the Philippines para maging aktibo na po at mamobilize po natin ang ating mga doktor at mga nurses sa ating mga military services. Next slide, please. And also, we need to review the prioritization of cluster or the centers of gravities in order to protect our economic, health, and social risk areas. Makikita po natin sa mapa natin, yung nabibilugan po natin, ito po yung mga tinatawag nating matataas po yung economic risk. And it has been proven that prioritizing highly urbanized and densely populated areas, we need to reprioritize in order to increase the coverage in certain areas and further protect the gains that we have earlier achieved. Next slide, please. So in summary po, Mr. President, these are our key points and key tasks. We need to find and vaccinate the unvaccinated. Yun po ang sinasabi po na recommendation ni Dr. Wong at ang ating secretary. We need to further protect the vaccinated by administering 20 million boosters to individuals. We need also to expand our vaccination to 5 to 11 years old to further ensure the opening of classes and open restriction to minors. And lastly, we need to increase demand in order to efficiently manage our vaccines administration and prevent unnecessary wastage. Ito lang po, next slide please. Ito pong example po nito, ipapakita po namin Mr. President, na sometimes nagkakaroon po ng false sense of security ang mga highly vaccinated cities. Ito po pinakita po ni Mr. Pepot, ating pong isang cold chain manager, na dito sa NCR, kung titingnan natin yung statistics ng NCR, kung makita po natin 12.6 million po ang eligible population. 10.4 million po ang ating 10.4 million ang ating nabakunahan, pero meron po tayong 6.5 million na intended for boosters. Meaning, dahil nakikita natin na may waning po ang effect ang ating mga vaccine, 3.8 po ang na-assume natin na ito sa ngayon, ito po yung may malakas pa na tinatawag na antibodies because ito pa yung mga fresh na mga po natin. So kailangan po talaga na talagang ang po natin, we just to remind the key cities which had more than 70% to 100% vaccination coverage, we need to revisit the realities that our people's protection should be further expanded and enhanced through the administration of boosters. So next slide please. So ito po ang binigay po ni Secretary Vince at saka po ni Yusek Mirna na dapat po na priority natin sa ating vaccination to need for the ramp up the administration of boosters para at least maano po natin, ma-maintain po natin ang protections nito sa mga major cities po na to, mga center of gravities. And based on the recommendation of Sec Vince and Yusek Mirna, these are the following cities and provinces with 70% coverage of fully vaccinated that needed to be ramped up of the administration of boosters and doses. Ito po yung sa NCR, kailangan po natin yung 17 cities. Sa Region 3, 7 cities in the region. Region 4A, kailangan po ng 12 cities and in the region. And also Luzon, kailangan po natin yung 10 cities at saka yung provinces. And also sa Visayas, meron po tayong 11 cities. At sa Mindanao, meron po tayong 8 cities and province in Mindanao. So yan lang po, Mr. President. At next slide please. Ang po natin, kung tayo po ay sama-sama at mayroon pong disiplina, at may bakuna, may laban po tayo sa pandemya. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, good evening, Mr. President.
Saan ka pala?
Naka-zoom lang, sir.
Sige, go ahead, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Mr. President, while itong si Typhoon Odette during the post-Yolanda period ay hindi ito ang pinakamalakas na bagyo. Meron kasing mas malakas sa kanya in recent years like Typhoon Ompong in 2016, in 2018 si Typhoon Lawin at Super Typhoon Rolly last year. Si Typhoon Odette ay nag-iwan ng pinakamatinding epekto at saka damages during this post-Yolanda period. And sa affected population, meron ng 1,242,737 affected families or 4.8 million affected persons sa 38 na probinsya na kanyang naapektuhan. And sa displaced families ay merong 475,160 displaced individuals, Mr. President. Sila itong mga hindi pa nakakauwi sa kanilang mga bahay. Sila ay tumutuloy ngayon sa mga evacuation centers at sa mga bahay ng kanilang kaibigan o kamag-anak. We compared our conduct of preemptive evacuation in recent years, and we saw that we did more in this in preparation for Typhoon Odette, but still we suffered more casualties. Typhoon Odette caused more casualties second to Typhoon Yolanda since 2013, Mr. President. We now have 407 dead, but still have 78 missing. Typhoon Odette caused.
Tell me, Secretary Halad, nagbigay ako I asked from the government budget, 4 billion, para mabigyan ko ng each family 5,000 immediately. Hindi yan independently of the other assistance that they are getting. Dumating ba ang pera doon sa baba? Kaagad?
Noong last meeting namin, sir, merong feedback na nagsisimula na, sir, yung grant of financial assistance. But we will follow up again on the status of that distribution of that, Mr. President.
Saan nilang, we will make this a three-way dialogue.
Yes,
Secretary Anyo.
Yes, sir. Not only 4 billion, Mr. President, but 4.85 billion. At ito po ay nai-download or nai-release po ng ating DBM directly to the LGUs noong pong yesterday, Monday po, January 3. At ito po in-expect natin na magsimula ang distribution tomorrow po, January 5. Once po matapos ng LGUs yung listahan po ng beneficiaries na sinimulan na po nilang gawin bago pa man na-release po yung pondo. At nakapag-conduct na rin po tayo ng orientation kung paano po yung pagdidistribute doon po sa ating mga naapekto ang mga kababayan. At 5,000 po per family. 1,000 per individual kasi meron pong mga individual lang na apektado. At, pero maximum po 5,000 per family ang matatanggap.
It's a bit late to be changing the rules now, but there should be a next time. I said we are short of time. We are about to make the exit. Na dapat sana, the 4 billion that I got, we still had to go into Irocos where to get the money, and I wanted as fast as possible. Ang utos ko sa kanila was really 48, 72 hours. 48 days or 2 days or 72 hours, 3 days. Dapat talaga meron, that would be my advice to whoever is listening and sino yung manalo, na dapat may pundo ka talaga, money, it's cold cash, money na may direkta ibigay sa kanila. Wala pa, iba pa yun. In addition to itong mga materials na dumadating sa kanila, yung yero, pati yung lumber. At kung ano naman, maraming almost yung ano doon, mga natumba na niyog, kung ibigay na lang sana, contact mo kung sino yung may-ari niyan, and we can provide some mga carpenters sa taga-gobyerno, yung volunteers, they would simply cut the fallen coconut trees into lumber, so that hindi nga, it's not a very strong material. So maybe we can just give it to them to add to their resources when they are building their houses. Maraming uses ng sayang rin maraming takers dyan, baski wood lumber. Kaya lang, it's not a durable material if reduced to lumbers, kasi I don't know why, but that's the way it goes. Medyo hindi maganda on a long-term basis. You can continue.
Yes, sir. Next slide, please. So, ito yung effects naman on lifelines. This was already reported previously, Mr. President. Ongoing ang restoration of power as well as water and telco service. Next slide, please. Cost of damage is now at 16.9 billion for the infrastructures dahil sa pagkasira ng about 460 infrastructures and 7.6 billion for agriculture. 597,000 houses damaged. Ito yung mga tulong-tulong na, next slide please. Mga activities ng iba't ibang ahensya, Mr. President, or likewise already reported to in the earlier meetings. Next slide please. So ito yung updates namin sa inyong mga priority directives. Next slide. On your instruction, designating Secretary Bautista as the head of the crisis management team under the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council being headed by Secretary Lorenzana as chairperson. This is aligned also with our response cluster system. At the national level, it is being headed by Secretary Bautista with the OCD administrator, myself, as providing operational support. And this structure is being replicated in all the regions affected. In Caraga, no less than Undersecretary Budjongan of the SWD is heading the regional crisis management team, and backing him up is Director Lisa Mazo, the regional director of OCD in Caraga. In Region 7, Assistant Secretary Rudy Incabo is the head of the regional crisis management team, and is being backed up by the regional director of OCD, Director Marlo Salazar. In all the other regions affected, the heads of the crisis management team are the regional directors of the SWD, backed up by the regional directors of OCD. Next slide, please. Providing the platform or venue for coordination and meetings of the crisis management team at the government command and control centers at the national as well as in the regional level. And we have also 3 emergency logistics hubs activated. Next slide, please. These are the assets that we are using, civilian as well as military, land, air, and sea transportation assets, including from the World Food Program, Mr. President. Next slide, please.
Rick, may directive ako na yung presidential yacht, yung Pangulo, tumuloy sa Siagor area to be used as a hospital. Hindi ko na nakita, but nandoon nakaparking na ba yung ang Pangulo?
Yes, sir. As of the last report, it's still serving the people of Siargao.
That is a presidential yacht which I never used. Kasi sa pangalan pa lang yate. So itong mga disaster, they should be there. Set sail doon sa mga areas so that they can be easily converted into many hospitals where yung na-injured pwedeng magtira doon muna while being treated. And hindi ko kasi wala akong nakita na ano. Pero I'm sure I gave the order, and I've heard that nandoon na raw sa, is it in Siargao?
It is in Siargao, Mr. President. In fact, malaking bagay yon dahil doon sa nagkaroon ng spike ng ng diarrhea. So yung presence ng mga medical personnel ng presidential yacht ay malaking bagay para pagsilbihan yung mga kababayan natin sa Siargao, Mr. President.
Well, that's good. I'm very happy to hear it. Pero may nagsabi na sa akin, I forgot who, but here sa itong opisina natin na nandoon na raw. So I just want to confirm. They should stay there for as long as it is needed by the populace. They should be there. Total, wala naman trabaho yan. Parking lang. All the 6 years of my presidency, hindi naman nagamit yan minsan. Kaya lang, itong mga ganitong sitwasyon, yun ang dapat, the best use for it is really to be a shelter for those unfortunate, those who are sick and unfortunate countrymen of ours can seek sanctuary.
Yes, sir. We will submit a special report on the activities of BRP Pangulo, Mr. President.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Utilizing those transportation assets, we now have delivered 4,154,607 kilograms of relief goods. And that includes 339,000 liters of bottled drinking water, Mr. President. Next slide, please. Ito yung distribution ng humanitarian assistance provided to the regions affected. Base sa record ng DSWD, a total of 261 million pesos from DSWD, from LGU 58 million, from NGOs 1 million plus, and other providers 12,000, for a total of 321 million pesos cost of assistance. Next slide, please. On the distribution of family food packs from the SWD, total of 401,501 family food packs. Most of these went to Region 7, Region 8, and Caraga region. Next slide, please. The distribution of bottled waters and gensets is as shown. This morning, Mr. President, there was a flight of cargo airplane delivering 59 gensets to Bohol, and that was received by the governor of Bohol, Governor Yap. Next slide, please. This is the rate for shelter assistance, 5,000 per damaged house, to be given by both NHA and DSWD. They have an arrangement that NHA will take care of the areas in Region 4B, Region 9, and Region 10, while DSWD will take care of the areas in Region 6, 7, 8, and Caraga. And as I have said earlier, we have organized a shelter cluster co-headed by NHA and DSWD with the support of all other agencies. Next slide, please. On our monitoring of donations, 113 government agencies provided assistance, 163 private donors, and these donations were brought to the following 9 provinces affected: Bohol, Cebu, Southern Leyte, Negros Oriental, Negros Occidental, Palawan, Surigao, Siargao, and Tinagay. And 18 countries offered assistance, 9 of which were already accepted. They are from Japan, China, Korea, US, the ASEAN AHA Center, UN OCHA, Israel, Hungary, and Switzerland. Next slide, please. Ito yung timeline namin in the conduct of post-disaster needs assessment, because eventually when our response is scaling down, we will focus now on the full rehabilitation recovery. Nagsimula na, sir, noong December 27 with the activation and organization of teams composing the teams for the conduct of PDNA, as well as compilation of baseline data. And yun ay natapos hanggang 3 January, and they move on to the assessment and validation of damage and losses, analysis of sectoral impacts, estimation of needs, development of recovery framework, analysis of financing options, the drafting of implementation plan, and the drafting of the PDN report, and the comprehensive rehabilitation recovery plan. And the timeline, the deadline for that is 31 January, the end of January, Mr. President. And we hope to present the PDN report and the draft comprehensive rehabilitation recovery plan on 18 February, Mr. President, to the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. And we'll be glad to be able to present that also to the President himself.
Well, anyway, I have a plan to go there again to make a review and see if my orders were followed. So gusto ko lang tignan yung what was the progress of our government intervention there. Bibisitahan ko lahat yan uli. Maybe middle of second or third quarter of January. So, yun na ba? Is that all?
Next slide, please.
Mayroon pa.
So, this is our last slide, Mr. President. We will sustain the relief operations and likewise ensure that all your instructions are carried out. And we have to complete the restoration of all those affected lifelines and implementation of shelter assistance and the grants, cash assistance being extended by DILG, or rather by the LGUs under the supervision of DILG. And of course, the conduct of post-disaster needs assessment and drafting of the rehabilitation recovery plan. That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
General Halad, let me thank you and congratulate you for a job well done. Just continue with itong pahabol na ngayon to see to it that everything I said is in place. At saka gusto kong malaman kung nasunod ba yung utos ko. Anyway, we will have a sort of an assessment after I shall have visited those places ngayong January, second or third quarter, maybe. Inshallah. Thank you. Who else
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Who else has to make a report? Si is it Undersecretary Gabin?
Yes, Mr. President.
Kumusta yung
Mr. President.
pera natin?
I have a report, Mr. President, on the on behalf of my principal, Secretary Dominguez. It will be two parts, Mr. President. What the DOF has done in connection with the rehabilitation caused by Odette. Second part will be what the DOF is doing in connection with the COVID response. So in connection with the funding for Odette, Mr. President, your instructions was for the department to look for 10 billion pesos by way of funding. And I'm glad to report, Mr. President, that last December 27, we were able to draw on the loan from the World Bank in the sum of 80 million, that is around 40 billion pesos, 4 billion pesos, Mr. President. It was drawn last December 27. And within the week, we will draw again $120 million from the same loan facility from World Bank. That's equivalent to 6 billion to fund the rehabilitation and recovery efforts of in connection with Odette. Commissioner Billy Dulay issued also a revenue regulation extending tax deadlines for 6 regions that were affected by the typhoon and under a state of calamity. He extended the deadline for 1 month. If the deadline was supposed to be December, Mr. President, the taxpayers are given an additional 1 month to file whatever needs to be filed before December. The Combili and Secretary Dominguez can extend that depending on the circumstances. In connection with the COVID response, Mr. President, and to support the effort of Sec Charlie, Sec Duque, and Sec Vince, the DOF will be signing, has actually signed a total of $800 million for booster shots, Mr. President. The $250 million has been signed with the ADB. Another $250 million, Mr. President, from AIIB. These were signed last year, and we are just waiting for the opinion of the DOJ for the effectivity of the loan. Later this month, Mr. President, we are going to sign a $300 million loan with World Bank, and we expect everything we expect for it to be effective around towards the latter part of January. So that will give us funds to purchase our COVID booster shots, Mr. President. And lastly, I'm glad to report that through the efforts of ComJagger, the Bureau of Customs have cleared, as of December 30, 2021, a total of 210,448,870 doses of vaccine. The Bureau of Customs was able to clear all shipments within the day and bring it to the warehouse facility to prevent spoilage. So that's my report on behalf of the Department of Finance, Mr. President. And again, we reiterate our support, continuing support to the President and all the cabinet secretaries to fulfill the mission and vision of your administration. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. That's a very splendid achievement, actually, with the loans granted to us geared to the rehabilitation of the destruction caused by the typhoon. That would be enough really for everybody to have an elbow room, enough leeway sa buhay nila na makapagtindig ng bahay. That's a lot of money, and if it is properly used, and well, I am sure that it will make the life of many Filipinos out there better than yesterday. Thank you for your information and the money that you are bringing in. Salamat. Is there any other? Wala na. It's 12:15. Siguro, let's call it a day. At least we have reported to the people. Ikaw, Secretary, wala na. I said, alam na ng mga reported to the people really the state of affairs of the nation and how we are coping up or responding to the challenges of governance. As a parting statement, I'd like to thank the different charitable institutions, persons, associations, whatever their nature or whatever is the organization is all about. Yung mga pati yung mga tao na private individuals and entities who really contributed to fund the rehabilitation or the emergency use of the money to make the load, the burden on the shoulders of the people that are out there more lighter to bear as the day progresses. So, mayroon man tayong pera, I think that kayo hong nakikinig ngayon, kumong naminaw, there is a lot of Visayan, Siargao, naminaw karon, nakikinig kayo, may pera tayo para itabang sa inyo, a sort of a help really. And we thank the how would I, the almost charitable spirit of the World Bank magpapahiram ng pera for this cause. Maraming salamat sa inyo, World Bank, at hindi kami matakot baski anong dadaan sa Pilipinas, basta yung pera available lang yan para tulong. I-reserva mo lang ang Pilipinas na malaking, kasi delikado talaga ang, I hope that there would no longer be a typhoon. Are we on the month of typhoons o no? Yun yung wayward lang yung Odette. I hope it would not repeat kasi medyo mahirapan tayo ng konti. May pera nga naman. The institutions responded, both the World Bank and itong mga atin dito. I'd like to thank the cabinet members, all of them who have helped in one way or the other to enable the people to stand again sa buhay nila. So with that, I'd like to say maraming salamat sa nakinig sa amin, at sana nalaman ninyo kung saan talaga ang pera ninyo bumabagsak. Maraming salamat po. Happy New Year.